All right, ladies and gentlemen, in 2024, Kenyans protested the Finance Bill 2024. Why? Because it hit where it hurts the most, in our pockets. This year, the Finance Bill is supposed to be different, they say. It has just gone through the public participation phase, and right now, the window for offering views and reviews on that bill is closed. But right now, we seek to ask a question. What's in it for Kenyans? And tonight, to help us discuss this alongside you, our dear audience at home, is a very large group of people, each of them representing you and I from across all walks of life. I would like to introduce the gentleman on my right, and the other gentlemen and ladies in our audience will be able to be introduced as we proceed. I would like to invite you to take part in this conversation because this is about our country, it's about our future, it's about the next calendar year and potentially the rest of our lives as Kenyans. And here's how you do that. 22047 is the SMS line. Should be on your screen right now. Our producers will also put up the WhatsApp number. Feel free to reach out through that number. I'll be happy to sample your feedback live and direct on air. And those of us who are watching on YouTube, the live chat is on. I am monitoring that live chat. I should be able to get your questions and your pointers. All right, and with that out of the way, shall we begin our conversation? Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce some of our panelists. Starting with my far right, we have Dr. Alex Kamau, CPA. Does the CPA come before or after your name?
CPA is the one that starts.
Starts, okay. Yes, allow me to reintroduce you properly this time. CPA Doctor. Alex Kamau, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You wear many hats, but today we will call you a business consultant.
That's for sure.
All right. Thank you so much. Karibu sana.
Okay.
Next, we have CPA, Wycliffe Bishanga. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
You are a council member for the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. How are you, sir?
That's correct.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
All right. So now if you have any other title, CPA comes first.
Absolutely.
Even if you're somebody's husband, you can't be Mr. CPA, so you're CPA first.
Absolutely.
Goodness. What if you're a preacher? Allegiance to God or allegiance to the...
We actually have people in our profession who are reverends. So we call them CPA, reverend, whatever.
CPA starts first.
Absolutely.
I see. All right. Now, this is interesting. This would be interesting if you were a CPA, because then how would I introduce you? Should I say the Honorable Makali Mulu or CPA Honorable? How does that work?
It will be Honorable CPA Dr. Makali Mulu.
Goodness gracious. All right. And then I'm sure you have a few titles. HSC, CBS, EBS.
CBS.
There you go. Goodness. Guys, initials, power. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, Member of Parliament for Kitui Central, Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you. And last but not least, are there any initials before your name I should know of?
No, just CPA.
Just CPA. Goodness gracious. CPA, ladies and gentlemen, CPA Ronald Bosi, who's the group managing partner for Ronald's East Africa.
Yes.
Or Ronald's Africa.
Ronald's Africa.
Thank you so much. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
High-powered delegation here. Another high-powered delegation in the studio. Shall we begin? I have a few questions. First of all, I just need your, off the top of your head, just some reactions. Let's start with you, Ronald. What do you think of the process this time round? Before we get to the document and what it has in store, compare the process of the previous finance bill, let's say 2023, 24, and now this time. What do you see as standing out for you?
Yeah, so one of the things that stands out for me, first is the process is a tragedy. Why do we have to review the finance bill, the act, the income tax or the taxes every year? So it makes the operating environment very volatile. And the government changes tax laws like a game of musical chairs. It makes the operating environment very unpredictable. And in the past, we have seen this used for political reasons, whereby people, sometimes politicians benefiting from tax exemptions or taxing some items so that they can participate in the trade of those particular items. Of course, the government has exercised a lot of caution, learning from the lessons from the previous year in terms of Gen Z's demos, but still there is a mouthful of things that have been brought into this. There's been a public participation, and people are more aware and very keen to see what provisions are within that budget that is going to affect their lives.
Okay.
But still, the process is very unnecessary because the shift of taxes each and every year makes the operating environment very unpredictable.
All right, CPA Bishanga, what are your views, just off the top of your head? What's your reaction to the process so far?
As somebody who has always, year in, year out, presented my views to the Finance and Planning Committee of Parliament, I'll say that we will know once that committee gives us a report. Because what we've seen before is that we present our views, we tell them that we feel this is not right, but then when they give us feedback, we realize that our views really didn't matter. So for me, I'm very keen to actually see what comes out of the public participation that has just ended. But this far, I think this year they tried to reach out more. They tried to get views more. But I mean, we will know once we see the report and really see whether our views really did matter.
I see. So the proof of the pudding will be in the eating.
Absolutely.
All right. What about you, sir?
Yes, I would say that this year Finance Bill 2025 compared to the one for 2024 is a bit polite, a bit soft, because the government is seeking an additional 35 billion compared to what the Finance Bill 2024 was seeking. It was seeking an additional 347 billion. And that's what led to them introducing so many taxes, and eventually to the protest that we saw culminating on 24th June 2024. So I feel since the government is not introducing more taxes, but trying to harmonize and align matters to do with the VAT, some items being taken from VAT zero rated to exempted, and some to standard rated VAT. So in essence, what the government is trying to do with this finance bill is to seal tax leakages and also to reduce the tax expenditure.
All right. I left you for last deliberately on this question because you have a unique perspective. You're on the inside of Parliament.
Yeah, sure.
Some of these guys almost, I believe some of these guys sat on your seat last year in June. Went to the cafeteria, drank your tea.
They took some food without salt.
Right. Can you give us the tea from the inside? Can you tell us, is there anything different about the process this time?
Actually, there is no difference in terms of the process. Because it's a legal requirement that every year we should have a finance bill. And the reason why we need a finance bill is because you need to finance the budget. So you realize our budgeting framework is what we call a 3-year rolling framework. So you budget year 1, but the year 2 and 3 are what we call the outer years, are projections for the next year. So what happens is, every year you do a budget now to actualize that particular year. So once you do the budget, then for you to finance a budget, that's why you need a finance bill. Normally what would happen is, if you look at the finance bill, it actually amends a number of acts of Parliament. It will amend the Income Tax Act. It will amend the Value Added Tax Act. It will amend the Excise Tax Act. And then it will amend the Procedures Tax Act. And that is normally the miscellaneous. So that's why you see it's normally not alone by itself. It's amending a number of other acts. And that's why every year then, if you want to change anything to do with income tax, you must have it in the finance bill. If you want to change your value-added tax, you must change it. So it's more of a procedural matter. But I like what Bichaga was saying. The challenge has always been that they would come with lots of documents, push their recommendation to the committee and to Parliament, but in most cases you realize not all the recommendations are taken up. So the challenge has been you give your recommendations, but they are not taken up into the document. And that has been the frustration from these guys who are the CPAs. And here there are lots of CPAs here. That has been the frustration. But generally in terms of procedure, I think it's okay. But this year, what has happened, as a result of what these guys did last year, I think people are a bit careful on what is happening. And that's why you realize last year's finance bill was projecting to raise revenue up to about 400 billion. This one, actually the projection is 24 billion only. But when you do a bit of analysis, it's ranging between 24 up to 40 billion. But as I'm talking to you, there's a bit of public participation, which means we don't know the final figure, but some of these could get out of the finance bill based on the public participation. And I do believe this time the chair of the Finance and Planning Committee is more keen to ensure that some of the recommendations from Kenyans are taken on board. So we'll be able to know the final document possibly by the end of the year, when they are end of the week, when they are presenting their report to Parliament.
Right, and still with you, one of the frustrations, especially by the CPAs, is that the recommendations are given from a point of expertise and experience, but there's very little of it that is taken up and so on. Would you say there's a similar problem within Bunge itself? I ask that because these guys felt unrepresented. And some of your guys were saying, look, we are with you. We say these things. We point out these things. For example, the member for Kiharu is now complaining about how much is actually being borrowed. And he was in charge of a major committee which oversaw a lot of these things. So is it clear to Kenyans that even within Parliament there's a bit of difficulty in terms of getting these recommendations across?
No, I think normally what would happen is that anytime you look at a finance bill as well as a budget, you should be able to look at it from three perspectives. The first perspective is it friendly to Mwananchi? These guys who are seated here. The second perspective is business people, the private sector. These guys who, CPA, these are guys in charge of institutions. To them, profit is a motivating factor. How much profit do I make? For them to make more profit, they need to reduce their costs. One of the items which reduces their costs is taxation. Now, to the government, they have an agenda they are driving, a political agenda, so that they get a re-election. So anytime you are looking at the budget and the finance bill, it's more balancing these three perspectives. So that at the end of the day, because if you have a budget and it's not funded, because there's no finance bill, then it means you'll not be able to deliver on development. You'll not be able to do your roads. You'll not be able to do your health sector. You won't be able to do your education. So politically, that's a very hot potato. And we have seen that is happening because currently, I'm sure these guys, you ask them, those who are in universities, the issue of capitation, the issue of lecturer strikes is there. So if you are to pursue that up to the end of a 5 year, I can tell you Kenya Kwanza regime will be going home on the basis of that. So it's like, as you tax, you must think about you delivering on your manifesto, but not harming the Kenyans. Because the other thing is, the other side of the coin is, if Kenyans, a normal Kenyan, has no money in their pockets, then they are not able to buy goods and services. If they are not able to buy goods and services, this gentleman here cannot produce. Because they produce only when you buy their goods and services. So it's a very delicate thing you need to balance. And that's what I'm saying. Anytime we discuss these things, we need to look both at the budget and the finance bill. That which has been happening, and it's important I say this. Bichege, we have done a lot of shows with him, and I've always challenged them. These guys are taking 3-4 weeks to look at the finance bill. And they have done serious analysis, the three of them. Ask them how much time have they taken to look at the budget proposals. Because what they do, the finance bill finances the budget proposals. So if you don't look at the proposals, then automatically you might be funding things which don't make sense. Meaning, if you are to fund things which make sense to Kenyans, you can easily do away with the finance bill. I want to give you a very good example. I don't know how many of you looked at the paper today. The Auditor General said for the last 3 years, Kenya has paid 6.7 billion to our development partners there and people who have given us loans for commitment fee. Commitment fee. That is money which has been loaned to Kenya and we have not withdrawn the money. So, which means if we are using our loans as expected, the 6.7 billion can be reduced from the finance bill without any change. Yeah. Last week you saw the Auditor General, one of the PSs, when he was presenting on the ASLA fund, he said 5 billion of ASLA fund has not been repaid by Kenyans.
Yeah.
Now the question is, now where money has not been paid back because there's no proper mechanism to collect the money, do you go ahead and give that money again? Now if you look at the ASLA fund this year, there is an additional allocation of about 6 billion, which means if we said, since you did not use the funds well, we won't give you additional resources, then the 60 billion they're asking for will be a reduction from the finance bill. So I'm saying, I wish this CPA guys would take much more time to look at what is in our budget. Look at the presidency, the office of the president, how much money has been allocated. Do we need to allocate such a money to the presidency? If the answer is no, it means somebody can sit down with a toothpick and say, this is not necessary, this is not necessary. You might be able to save $1 billion from there. You go to another area. So actually this 24 billion, we can easily save it from the expenditure side and say there's no need for finance bill this year. These are the issues. So I want to challenge this gentleman and tell them, take much more time and look at the budget, because there are so many things in that budget which from where I sit could easily be done away with without changing the outcomes. The outcomes will still remain the same.
Challenge accepted?
It cannot.
On that point, hold on. Digest that for a second. Let's hear from the guys here. Mtetezi, I see you have a mic. Please stand up, introduce yourself to Kenyans, and give us your quick impressions, please.
So, I'm John Mtetezi, and friends, in a country where our opinion or the opinion of Mwananchi does not count, in a country where those whom are supposed to represent us have joined with our oppressors on the dining table, then as the young people, we are left with no option but rather to stand up and speak for our generation and speak the truth to the heart. And what I've learned from the proposed finance bill, one, it has come with an agenda of finishing the young people yet again, because majority of us here and even the outside depend on content creation. And the finance bill has proposed some punitive measures to ensure that it collapses the digital economy through introduction of taxes, especially to streaming softwares, and also ensuring that it has increased the tax on internet cost. So when you look at those matters and you keep in your mind that those who are supposed to speak these things for us, because you know that there is the indirect representation where our MPs represent us, and they no longer do. They represent the president. That's why we feel that we need to do...
Even those in the opposition?
A few of them. Of course, the few in opposition are few. They don't add up the numbers to oppose a particular motion or that proposal in the parliament. But what I'm saying is this, that we need to do something as the young people. And I'm requesting the president, who I may say that at this point that the president is like expecting the sun to rise from west instead of east. Because when you expect him to tell the truth or to listen to you and do that, he'll not. And because I don't want to take much time, I want to say this. The president has assumed that he reasons, and I want to use a basic example, that you tell someone you don't store all the maize in this mansion and you share it amongst mansions, but when I looked, I saw he divided his offices into several quarters. Then he allocated money to the office of the spokesperson, the office of the advisors, And he ended up increasing the money. In fact, from the office of the spokesperson, it has raised from 19 billion to 36 billion. Whereas our kids do not have the examination money. They have not been allocated. What could we be arguing about if our president does not listen to us? And those who are supposed to represent us do not. And you say, today, they have released Njeri on a 100,000 bail. And you ask yourself, when we have made our work easier to present our opinion, matters finance bill, they arrest us. So, is the president interested with a repeat of the 2024 June? That's my question tonight.
All right, that's a powerful question. Let's hear from someone else. Who has a mic? Mulamba, please. Then we hear from the ladies. Please, someone pass the mic to the ladies. Whichever one is ready. Yes, Mr. Mulamba, please.
We do not need an annual finance bill. There are countries that do not have a finance bill every year. Unfortunately, according to the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, a finance bill must be published in this country every year. That is untenable because it gives us a situation that is unpredictable, an economic situation in Kenya that is unpredictable. This does not give investor confidence and does not boost tourism and investment in this country. It is a situation no one can predict, and we cannot have that going forward. And if our MPs cannot see that, then we will tell them, we do not need an annual finance bill. We need one finance act that is amended every 5 years. That would make sense than having a finance bill that amends tax laws in this country every other year. Because as an investor, I would not want to invest in such a country that has an unpredictable tax regime that could change every other day. That today I would invest in Kenya and I would be sure that this would be the cost of production for this year. But I will not be sure what will be the cost of production for next year. Niingie siasa kidogo. Today, we were at the Milimani Law Courts. We actually had to protest so that they produced to us Rose Njeri. We had camped at the law courts for close to 4 hours, and there was no sign of Rose Njeri whatsoever. And this is because she has come up with a website that is addressing the very issue we are discussing here, a website that allows Kenyans to give their views, their public participation views on such vital matters, including the finance bill. And this is a failure on the side of Parliament. I am sure my good friend Makali Mulu, because he's an MP from the area I come from, feels attacked because he's the only legislator here. But we'll use you as an example. You have to give us the liberty to use you as an example. The MPs we have in Kenya should have realized that we need an online platform that gives these Kenyans a chance to give their views via their smartphones and via the laptops at the comfort of their homes. Not everyone has time to attend these public participations. After all, the public participation on the finance bill was lumped up with the public participation on the NG-CDF bill. So how many Kenyans attended both? I attended the public participation on the CDF. I was not even aware there was a public participation on the finance bill. Wouldn't it have been easier to have this public participation digitized for everyone who cannot attend these public participations online? And as I conclude, we need to applaud Rose Njeri. We need to celebrate her. She's our hero. And we need to encourage more Rose Njeris out there. In fact, I wish I was in her spot because I am going to do what she has done and even better. We need to encourage more young people to do this. As we sit here, we cannot vote electronically in this country. That is unsustainable. How many people have time to show up for the actual election voting? So many people are disadvantaged and disenfranchised in that we have an election cycle in this country that happens in one day. And within the 12 hours, if you have not voted, you cannot vote. There are countries out here that are voting digitally. Why can't we vote digitally? Another youth out there should come up with a website that allows us to vote digitally. Na ukipeleka kotini tunasimama na wewe.
All right. Let's hear from one of the ladies, and then we have a few more views. Yes.
My name is Nancy Njoki, a youth leader from Nyandarua.
Yes.
Yeah, and my question comes, how do we fall as a country, whereas, as we can see, Rachel Ruto started an initiative like kitchen kitchen garden initiative. And while we look back from the last government regime, from the last government, we could see like Beyond Zero was there to facilitate women in their childbirth and in everything that they wanted for them to deliver safely. But right now in the finance bill, we have newborn tax. I don't know, it is called like neonatal tax, something like that. So we're wondering, I will echo what Mtetezi has said, it is affecting young people like us, because I will not live, tunasemaga ujana ni moshi. I will not stay like this forever. At one point, I would love to have my mini-me. But then again, when you see this kind of accumulated bills and unnecessary things, unnecessary bills waiting for you, you will actually reject and even start on family planning as a young person. So we have to, this finance bill, we have to rethink, reform, and resist it, because it's actually messing us.
All right,
yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a bit. Mr. Kulema, get ready, and a few other people, get ready. Let's get some reactions and responses. Let's start with you, Alex. What comes to mind? You've heard some of the points that have been raised. You've heard the challenge by our Honourable Member of Parliament here. What is your response?
Yes, my response is that the way the budget making process is structured, we start with the formulation stage, then we go to approval, then we go to implementation, and we go to review. Now the stage that we are at approval stage, where now we are doing public participation. The formulation stage is when we came up with the budget circular paper, the budget review and outlook paper, then the budget policy statement, all that process. And every other time there was that public participation. But now where I want to come to what Mheshimiwa has said is that at the review stage, that's where we have the Public Accounts Committee in the Parliament, and we also have the Public Investment Committee. Those two committees, they are strategically reserved for the opposition, because the opposition are the ones that are supposed to work hand in hand with the Auditor General. And the Auditor General, every other time, she says that the most of the audits that they have done throughout the country on ministries, departments, and agencies, that they were not able to get all the records, all the explanations to support the expenditure. And they say this and this billion were not supported. And I feel it is the work of the Parliament now to hold accountable those governors, those leaders who have not used the public resources in an effective and efficient manner. But now the story ends there. And the saddest thing that the Auditor General keeps saying is that every time the report starts, as we said last year, as we reported in the previous report, so there seems to be no end to this game. And my push would again to urge the politicians to do their work, because they were elected to do oversight. Among doing the representation, oversight is one of the most important roles to ensure that public resources are used in the right way.
All right. CPA Bishangi?
I would like to reiterate the words used by CPA Alex, that Mheshimiwa has thrown a challenge to us, but we like to throw it back to him. As he has correctly said it is Parliament's duty to oversight. And in this country, the challenge we have is that we have a Parliament that thinks it is part of the executive. We really need to understand that there is a division of duties, so that the executive would implement the budget. And when you look at the framers of our constitution, they were very clear. Executive implements, the implementation reports will come in, and they do come to Parliament, but we never hear of them. We never see parliamentarians discussing the reports on implementation. And that is where the rain beats us all the time.
Right.
So my ask would be, even as some of us will take this up, and we've actually been looking at the expenditures, but Parliament has got to understand that it is their duty So when you see, because ordinarily we shouldn't be having a position that this is government, this is opposition MPs, that shouldn't be happening. When you are a member of the legislature, your duty should be oversighting the implementation of that budget. Can we then be seeing them doing their work, not just clapping because you've been told, you know, this is our agenda, so you've got to support it, then you support it blindly, because that's what we've seen.
Okay.
And I would also want to say that, just to agree that our problem is not necessarily on the revenue side. And that is why I agree with Mulamba when he says we shouldn't be having a finance bill. We shouldn't be thinking of raising revenues. When we set our procedures of raising revenues, that can stand for some time. But we need to rein in on the expenditure, because that is where we have a bigger problem. You see, in this year's budget, so we anticipate to spend 4.2 trillion with a projection of 3.3 trillion income. Even if we put in everything and say 3.5, we still have a deficit of about 750 billion. So what happens? We will have to borrow more to cover that expenditure. And also remember that the 3.3 may actually not be collected at the end of the day, because last year we collected 2.4 trillion. This year we project to collect 2.7 trillion at the end of this financial year. So 3.3 is a little bit overstretching it. So that may mean our deficit may even be much higher than the 750 billion. To also remember what Mtetezi said, that we do not have examination fee or in that budget.
Right.
So we may see that being introduced later, maybe through a supplementary budget or something. So our deficit is actually much, much higher. It could be over $1 trillion.
All right. Just on that point, allow me. Honourable, there appears to be a bit of, for lack of a better word, deliberate opacity. It's like something is hidden. You know, the more you dig, the more you find out there's things there that are not meant to be seen by the public, but then will come back and bite them. For example, what he's talking about, is there something that could be done in the process that could promote total transparency, so that we can do what you and some of the other people are proposing, identify where there could be savings, and to be able to trim this particular amounts that we're talking about?
Actually, a lot can be done, and I take the challenge from my colleagues, basically, but I want to explain what happens. If you look at the Public Accounts Committee reports, and you guys can access them in the website, or if you go to your mobile phones, you'll be able to get it. The Auditor General every year will give recommendations in terms of which accounting officer has not accounted for public resources. And what she has always been pushing for is that after Parliament adopts our reports, because we adopt them, adopting them means we are in agreement that they are a representation of what is happening on the ground. The expectation is that two things can happen. You can either sanction the accounting officer by doing two things: by bitching the accounting officer, or by ensuring that you don't provide more resources in terms of budget to the accounting officer. But what has been happening in the past, and even currently, that report will be adopted by Parliament, but the reports go to the shelves in terms of implementation. And what would normally happen is you hear people saying, we want the DCI to do further investigation. They were saying they want the ESCC doing further investigation. On a serious, not Kenyans. The Auditor General has what it takes to audit all the public books. How do you bring ESCC now to do further investigation after the Auditor General has done it? It's the only office, given the mandate by our Constitution, to audit. It is the only office with all the required officers to do that, including forensic audit. So this is just a circus. That's the way I look at it. And I think you guys, even as you go pushing for out there in the streets for finance bill, this same Auditor General, who is paid on using taxpayers' money, every year says, a third of our budget is either misdirected or misappropriated or in people's pockets. Now, that being the case, if you take a third of a 4.2 trillion budget, it's over $1 trillion. Yeah. Now, this finance bill, we're talking about 24 billion. So we are all over chasing 24 billion and being quiet on $1 trillion, which is either in my pocket or in this gentleman's pocket. Why don't we say as a country, time has come, when if you are not accountable to us, and I think you have what it takes, if you are able to chase us out of parliament, you can chase these guys out of their offices, those who are corrupt. That's the way I look at it personally.
Right.
So I think we're actually misdirecting our energies. Right. Today, if we said we direct our energy to anybody who is corrupt in this country, we will save $1 trillion. Nobody will be taxed anymore in this country. We'll be able to fix our roads. We'll be able to pay we are borrowing, for your information, this year, we are borrowing about 870 billion. That's the deficit. About 870 billion. By dealing with corruption, we'll be having $1 trillion. We don't need to borrow a single cent. And we'll be in business. I think this is the kind of, so we want to see you guys now directing your energies to the right place so that if we save these resources, this country is so rich. The other thing I wanted to say is, the issue of the communication in terms of public participation, my friend from my county, Parliament has a website where if you don't want to come in person, you can actually write and send your submission in terms of any public participation. You can just do a write-up and send to our website through the clerk. It will be taken by the committee concerned and it will be analyzed. So without really appearing to defend myself, I just want to say it is not a secret. Our parliament has been captured. You know it. It's not a secret. There are a few there who would make noise, but they don't have that critical mass to change the decision of the majority. And our democracy is in a way that the majority will have their way, the minority will have what they are saying. So we can make noise. We can make noise. It will go on record that Makali Mulu made noise, but it will not carry the day in terms of the voting. So the vote will be taken by the majority. And I think that's where we have a bit of challenge. Because you come in under a political party, like now Kenya Kwanza, you know, it was UDA with many political parties. So even as a member of parliament, you are loyal also to the party, even as you are much loyal to the people who vote for you. Because it is your party who gives you the ticket to be voted for. These are the issues. But you know, when you're out here, you might not be able to pick them. But these are issues which this is the reality of the matter when you're in parliament. But I don't want to take that as an excuse for not doing our work. We are saying as parliament, the moment we realize as parliament that all over the world, where democracies are mature, parliament is a custodian of each country's democracy. It is the one which ensures there's freedom of speech. You can do anything and nobody will touch you. But in a situation where the parliament is captured, then you can conclude for yourselves.
Actually, on a side note, and a question to you, Mheshimiwa, and I'm sure some of you who've been there for the other shows can appreciate this. Sir, we had a program on this channel, on this particular program, People's Court. And one of the things that was raised is what happens to leaders once they get into parliament and the compromise or constrictions that occur. And you've raised an interesting point around, who gets your loyalty as a member of parliament? Is it your party? Is it your people? Realistically speaking,
it should be the people.
Should be the people. But realistically speaking, I mean, that's idealistically speaking, it should be the people. But qua ground, in reality,
mambo ni tofauti.
Mambo ni tofauti. Some of these guys are vying. Some of these guys are aspiring to lead their constituencies, their wards, and so on. Can you give them some advice? This is just on a side note. Can you give them some advice on exactly how they can walk that balance, that tightrope between representing your people and representing your party, because sometimes those two are not the same?
Yeah, actually at times they're conflicting, because you realize, like now, I remember when I've been in parliament for some time, I remember at some point we had a budget, which I will not mention the president, but then we presented the budget to the president for, you see that after doing the budget, you go and brief him on what you've done. And I remember we were against some item in that budget. And the question was, whose budget is that? Is it yours or is it mine? And then, when he says that, anybody who is in that party coils. because the party is so powerful. If your party today decides to de-whip you, you might have to go back to a by-election. This is how serious parties are. And that's why you see, when you go to parliament, you are pleading with your people, elect me, I'll do 1, 2, 3. But then once you're in now, the party also comes in. It is the party which will determine which committee you sit in. It is the party which will give you a party position that on this matter, this is our party position. And if a party position is given and you don't adhere by it, then there are consequences. So these are the issues we need to really navigate through when you are a member of parliament. But I'm just saying what we need to do is to grow up our democracy to a level that we get a mature democracy where a member of parliament knows I do represent my people and there is no other power other than my people who can dictate what I should do in parliament.
All right, right. I'm sure that is some food for thought right there, right? Now, I want to refocus a little bit. I have a simple question to ask, and I'll ask Ronald to jump in first. Who gains from this? If you looked at the finance bill, who does it look like it favors? Who benefits? Who gains from this?
The beneficiary of a defective finance bill is corrupted government officials. And what Mheshimiwa is saying here is a very desperate position to be in, because it signifies the collapse of the governance system. Because if the parliament cannot be able to oversight the government as is expected from our constitution, and then you tell Gen Zs now to oversight on behalf of parliament, then we are saying that the government is supposed to collapse. Because it's not the responsibility, the Gen Zs are not paid by government to oversight the government. So you cannot tell the Gen Zs, go to the street and remove everybody who is corrupt. Then you're saying, let's collapse the government, because the government is not working for the people. It's working for the parliamentarians and their parties. It's a very sorry state to be in. And when you talk about the role of accountants and all that, and I think accountants have pronounced themselves, even through the Office of the Auditor General, because the Office of the Auditor General are accountants. I work in a neighboring country whereby 94% of the reports of all the government entities are clean opinions. Here in our country, more than 95% of the reports are defective opinions, but nobody does anything about it. What we have failed here is consequence management.
By the way, on that point, the guys from ICPAC, don't you censure, don't you check your own members? Don't you, kind of peer review and peer oversight of your own members? If this many, I would imagine this many problems are occurring, issues with accounting and so on all across the country. Isn't that something you can do, yes or no? We'll come back to you, Rob.
The problem is much bigger. Because remember, the people giving that opinion, they're also our members.
Yes.
So our members will go audit and they'll tell you, we have a problem here. We have MDAs and county governments, especially county governments, that get a bad report as bad as a disclaimer. A disclaimer means that we couldn't even audit. Things are terrible. So we have those situations. And the problem is not necessarily the accountants doing the books. Because you see, when you're doing the reports, that's just part of it. There is other consequences. I'll give you an example. Of course, it has to be the accounting officer. If it's a county government, if there's money that has been spent and there's no documentation, the accountant is unable to record. And so that financial statement is going to have a problem because the transactions are not well recorded. But whose authority was that expenditure done?
Okay, all right, fair enough, fair enough. Now, let me reframe the question of who gains from it. Talk to me about there's something in this finance bill about gratuity and pension relief.
Yeah.
Are there any benefits there? Is there anyone who gains from that?
Yeah, of course, there are some goodies in the finance bill, which you talk about pension relief, so that it's exempting taxation of pension, and also increasing, and also the contribution to pension are also exempt. up to, remember the last time we exempted up to 300,000 shillings every year. And of course, again, when you go to withdraw that money, in the past it has been, you pay also tax on it. But now it's being exempt. So it's a really a positive contribution. And of course, something else that I also discovered that is very positive here is increasing the per diems and mileages from 2,000 shillings to 10,000 shillings, because the 2,000 was very ridiculous. And of course, the other aspect that was also very positive in the finance bill is the issue of interest on construction of own property, whereby you also get interest relief on that, because in the past, you only got interest relief on owner-occupied property in terms of mortgages. So expanding it to that is a welcome move.
Okay.
But on maybe the other ridiculous thing I also thought was in this finance bill is the issue of issues of urgency notice by KRA.
Actually, can you allow me to come back to that in a bit?
Yeah.
I want to bring in Alex just briefly. Can you talk to me, how many here are what you'd qualify to be an SME? Anyone running a business here? I know you're in business, you know, people who are running businesses here. Okay, great. So apparently there's something about SME support, something around the lines of, you know, reductions on tools and equipment and so on. Can you help Kenyans understand that a little bit?
My understanding of how this finance bill is affecting SME is a bit different.
Please.
Because starting from the borrowing that the government will do of 879 billion, and 590 billion being borrowed locally, that will affect the SMEs in a big way, because the SMEs will be competing with the government to borrow locally. And that what is likely to make is also that the interest rates are likely to be high, and that will drastically affect the profitability of SMEs. In terms of the other aspect with regards to SME, if we look at the aspect of production of animal feeds, the raw materials for production of animal feeds are going to be instead of, they are being moved from zero rated to exempted.
Help us understand that distinction.
Yes.
Who understands the difference between zero rated and, you know, tax exempt? You understand that. How many don't understand? So all of you are absolute geniuses, you understand this. All right, please help us for the sake of the guys at home. These guys are geniuses, but the guys at home who might not understand, what does this mean, please, in brief?
In brief, that VAT is divided into 3 categories. There are those supplies that are zero rated.
What does that mean?
Zero rated, what it means, that so we have the buyer and the seller. When the buyer is buying a commodity, this buyer buys something plus VAT. So if I buy this phone for 100 shillings, and then it is VAT, it has a VAT component in it, so I'll buy 100, and then 16 shillings will be added to it, so I will buy it at 116 shillings.
Yes.
So if I am selling, I will also sell it maybe at 200 shillings, and add another VAT on it. So the VAT that I have added when I'm selling, it's called the output VAT. The one that I paid when I was buying it, it is called input VAT. So when it comes to zero-rated products, the person, the buyer, the buyer was charged input VAT when buying, but when selling, he's not allowed to add VAT to the other buyer.
All right.
So, but the government allows him to claim
the one
for
he's
refund.
already paid.
Yeah, the input VAT, he claims it from the government because it is the government which has stopped him from charging VAT to his buyer.
To the buyer.
But
all right. So geniuses, you've gotten that? You said the 3 parts. That's one. The second?
The one is for exempted.
Yes.
The same story. I buy this phone at 100 and there's 16 shillings for VAT. So if it is exempted, the government does not allow me to charge VAT to the buyer of my products, but again does not allow me to claim the input VAT from the government.
From the government.
So what I am supposed to do...
But you're paying. If it has input VAT, you're paying.
Yes,
but you can't claim it.
But I can't claim it. So the way I will...
And you can't ask your buyers to do so?
No, I will have to factor in that VAT
in
cost
the price.
to the buyers.
I see.
Yes, but for zero rated, I don't factor that cost to the buyers because I get it as a refund from the government.
All right.
But now the one that is standard rated is when I am paying input VAT for my supplies and I'm charging VAT to when I'm selling. So there is now that output VAT and input VAT. So what I pay to the government is the output VAT minus input VAT. The balance I pay to the government as VAT.
Right. Okay. CPA Bishangi, there's another aspect here. There's been some relief, to the pay as you earn. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Some people are excited about it, others, they're not excited. Is there something to smile about?
It's actually a bad thing because what this bill has done, it has told you that you're going to deduct all reliefs before you get the taxable amount. So let me explain. Currently, when you compute pay as you earn, you will take your amount. So the first 24,000 is taxed at 10%. But you also get a relief of 2,400. Now that is the tax amount. So the current situation is that, so if my salary was just 24,000, I'll pay zero as pay as you earn. Because 24,000 will be taxed at 10%. So the tax to pay is 2,400. But I'm getting a relief of 2,400. So then I'll pay zero amount. However, what this bill is proposing to do is that you will get the relief as it is now, 2,400, before we get your taxable amount. So we'll take 24,000 less 2,400, then now compute your tax. So again, that is below 24,000, so that will be at 10%. So you're going to see, especially people now on the lower level, having increased taxes. Because it actually, the bill says that it's supposed to be deducted before you get that amount. So it's not a good thing at all, because essentially what it means is that the amount we are taxing has gone down, has gone up, sorry. The rates, so let me explain how the PAYE works. So we work with what we call a graduated scale, where we put you in bands. So as I said, 10% up to 24,000. When you get to 32,333, you get taxed at 30%. So that person being taxed at 30%, whatever figure we get, usually it is deducted 2,400. But it will now take you along a route to actually get the 2,400. So in a nutshell, it is not a good thing. And I will also want to speak on pay as you earn. In this country, we have very narrow PAYE bands, because at 32,333, you're already being taxed at 30%. Then it goes all the way up to 500,000. So up to 500,000, you are at 30%. From 500,000 to 800,000, you are taxed at 32.5%. If you earn over 800,000, 35%. What that means is that we're highly taxed, because taxing anyone 35%, and remember in this country you do not get anything for free, even education, healthcare, all these things you still have to pay. But what that means is that it reduces the amount, the disposable income of the person getting it, and you end up spending less. So in a way it is counterproductive, if you ask me. And the government needs to learn that the more you tax people, the more you even limit production, and the more you limit the money you end up collecting as taxes. There's that ripple effect. But let me just finish on that, the narrow bands. Our expectation, and it's part of the proposals that we gave to the Finance and Planning Committee, is that the tax bands should be expanded so that maybe 30% starts at about 100,000. And we've also done the math to show that it's government that will actually benefit the most, because we will have everyone who is employed will have more disposable income, then spend it on VAT now, because you are now going to buy more bread, you are going to buy more Vaseline to apply on your skin and all that. In the process, you pay more taxes, the consumption taxes,
All right.
so the government benefits from that.
All right, interesting. We've just had a quick class, right? Let's take a short break, digest what we've learned, and we'll be right back with more messages. Those at home, please send in your feedback. Send in, I can see some chats here on the YouTube conversation. Send it. We'll be able to handle that in a bit when we come back in a moment.